All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I think we may have more people come in as we go along, but we'll get started just in the interest of time. I'm Lauren Sablanca. I work on the Centre of Excellence for Decarbonising Roads Live Lab, and my day job at Amy as well, within our innovation department. I'll be co-hosting this alongside North Lanarkshire Council, who we'll hear from in just a minute. But the purpose of today is really to go through and showcase our knowledge bank that we've been developing as part of our live labs. So we'll firstly go through an introduction to what is the Centre of Excellence. For those of you who aren't familiar, hopefully all of you are already, but a bit of background on live labs too. That's a £30 million 3-year long programme from the Department for Transport and ADEPT. We'll then dive into the knowledge bank, its development, its purpose, and how it looks and why it looks the way it does. And we'll finally then go into a demonstration. So I'll take you live through the knowledge bank, which is now free, open to use for all of you. And then finally, we'll open up for feedback and discussion. We have a Mentimeter as well, which we'll open up at the end of the program. So hopefully all of you can take a few minutes at the end to flick through the knowledge bank and leave your thoughts as well. So I will pass on to my colleague, Scott Walker from North Lanarkshire Council, to take you through a bit of the introduction of our live lab and why in the first place did we include a knowledge bank in our project. Over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Lauren, and morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So, just to add on to Lauren's initial summary, obviously Live Labs £30 million 3-year project. There's sort of 4 interconnecting themes. We were successful in a bid almost 3 years ago now for funding to develop the Centre of Excellence alongside Transport for West Midlands, and between us we got around £8.5 million to develop this the centre. Sort of 3 or 4 key work streams. One is the knowledge bank. Another one, behavioural change. Live trials is a big part of it. And it's all about decarbonising road materials, looking at carbon, adopting the use of low carbon materials, identifying why, identifying barriers to use of these low carbon materials. In order to do this, we've sort of built up an extensive partnership with different bodies and groups, using academia, working closely with the University of Nottingham and Aston University. Obviously, we're working with Amy to support us with professional services and their expertise. Transport for West Midlands, they're working with COLAS. So between the 4 of us, we're sort of got a lot of expertise. We're working with other sort of key leaders across the country in terms of Transport Scotland. National Highways down south are feeding in, and we've got players from some of the big organisations, big local authorities across the country. So what we're trying to do with the Centre of Excellence, we're looking for a tool to try and reduce siloed working and to try and encourage information sharing. We all face the same challenges, hence we wanted to develop a resource to share knowledge and tools. And it's across the whole UK road sector, so we're looking for a 4-nation approach. Sort of with increased budget constraints and widening skill gaps, our collective strength has never been more vital, and we recognise that. So working together enables us to tackle those challenges more effectively and empowers us to control the direction of travel for the sector. Learning from others and sharing best practice is something that we'll need to improve on. During the mobilisation phase of the project, we spoke to a number of authorities and suppliers who had all trialled various low carbon materials. Some of these trials have been very successful, but disseminating information and sharing information wasn't so successful. So that's sharing this learning going forward was quite key. As I mentioned earlier, the live test beds is a big part of the project. We've spent probably the last years doing a number of trials. some of which have been very successful. Others we've learned a lot of lessons as well. So sharing that information again through our knowledge bank is quite a key and probably the most important work stream that we're doing through the project. I think the Live Labs project itself, the funding provides an opportunity to trial the most promising innovative materials from across the globe. So we've identified around, I think it's over between 300 and 400 different materials that have all been assessed. So we're trialing these in live scenarios where we would not normally take the risk due to limited budgets. So I think probably more than that's me on that slide.
What was that? Sorry, Scott.
Sorry, I think yes, I was. I think I've probably covered most of this.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott, for the introduction and a bit of the background of why we chose to develop a knowledge bank in the first place. As Scott mentioned, really addressing that siloed working. In terms of our journey, and Scott alluded to this a bit earlier, but our journey really started in around mid-2023, but really it was sort of late 2022 for some of the early discussions and conversations that shaped the Centre of Excellence. I won't spend too much time on this because I know we're all here to see the knowledge bank, but we started in year one around that mobilisation. So as Scott mentioned, forming those partner networks with supply chain, with local authorities, with contractors, with academia and others. We performed quite a bit of market scanning, both sort of within our sort of desktop research, but also supported by Connected Places Catapult as well to look more internationally and at those sort of earlier stage SMEs. We developed our own innovation scorecard as well, so we can actually prioritize which we took to trial based on both their carbon savings potential, but also their wider impacts. And we've also published trial protocols that go into depth about our guidance on how to best design a trial, both that we've used internally to shape then our trial designs, but also to share with the wider sector. And again, really focusing in on those conversations, performing some surveys, some early focus groups with local authorities to understand their challenges to achieving their net zero targets with a specific focus in on materials. Within year 2 and year 3, really as well, we've been focusing in on building evidence. So that's involved acknowledging the mountain of other live trials that have been done across the country by other local authorities, but also supplementing that with our own live trials as well. So that's been ongoing within the West Midlands and North Lanarkshire over the last 2 years. Firstly, focusing on those treatments or materials relevant to earlier in the design life of our assets. So looking at pothole repair, surface treatments. We've looked at line marking as well, and signage too. And then particularly in this last year, focusing in on surfacing or resurfacing. So once we get to that end of life, which materials can we use within the surface? And as well, developing our carbon and technical framework. So we're supported by the Future House Research Group, and as Scott mentioned, Nottingham and Aston University. This year as well, in addition to closing up on our trials, we've also been focusing on those wider barriers. So we know hopefully this knowledge bank is one of those key methods to help the sector really connect and adopt some of these materials. But we've also been undertaking behavioural research. So looking at sort of the on the ground barriers to innovation adoption from the perspective of our operatives and our inspectors and engineers. We've also run an SME sandbox, which you can read more about on our LinkedIn, our website, but that's working specifically with those lower or earlier stage developments and SMEs and what barriers they face on their transition to business as usual, and pairing them with industry mentors. And then, of course, the knowledge bank, which we're all on here to talk about. I will speak to it later, but we're still in the process of finalising a lot of our carbon and technical evaluations. So those will just continue to be published as and when we go through the next 6 to 9 months until the end of Live Labs 2. And then, of course, Live Labs 2 has a 5-year monitoring and evaluation period for all of the projects. And within that period, we'll be focusing in on sort of assessing that long-term change created by the programme, both locally within the West Midlands and North Lanarkshire, but also across UK local authorities. Just to give you a bit of flavour, and of course you can read more about this on our knowledge bank too now, but we've done quite a few material trials that I mentioned, so looking at pothole repair, rejuvenators and preservatives, line marking as well, signage and surfacing. I think key to our approach has been a comparative methodology, so having the business as usual as well as the new innovative materials all in the same place as much as possible through our trial design. And again, that's been backed up by that accelerated life testing that we're doing with the University of Nottingham. I'll just skip through this. I mentioned as well our innovation funnel. So that's looking at sort of the behavioural research, but this has shaped our entire programme to date. And you can see that ultimately ends with that scale and sharing. So now that we've done some trials, now that we've identified these materials, how do we better get them out to the sector? But then also, how can we act as a repository for all of the great work being done across the UK, using low carbon materials, or even learning from those that have failed as well, and sharing our experiences so that we can further develop and really improve our network for the public that we serve. Then going into the knowledge bank itself, so this is a tool that we are designing for local authorities and by local authorities. So local authorities have been involved throughout the process, and that's been really critical to our approach and our ethos. We started off in 2024 completing end user requirements. So we worked with a behavioural science consultancy called Thinks Insight, who conducted behavioural research with 10 local authorities across the country, both in terms of a range of different roles, but also different types of local authorities in terms of the challenges they may face and geographies as well. And that assessed those initial challenges they face from an individual, social, and material level to adopting and achieving decarbonisation. And then actually using those insights to develop the initial design prototypes or wireframes, the specific EUR. So what features did they need? What information did they need? What type of collaboration would they want to have on the knowledge bank? And as a result of that, we had our wireframes, which we then took to multiple key suppliers and did the IT options appraisal and onboarding. And then finally, design and development. So very much an iterative process. And it's crucial to note that this isn't necessarily the end of our design and development. We want to launch this almost in a beta way, so that we can have direct feedback from yourselves to shape the next phase of development, which is already starting as we speak. So what you see now is definitely not the finished product. We had in August as well, during our sort of initial testing period, a series of focus groups with local authorities and suppliers. So again, really gathering those insights and using that to feed back into the development and shaping of the knowledge bank. So the intention of the knowledge bank, and I'll come on to show you it live as well, as I mentioned, is to be that evidence base for local authority innovation. It's not just about us telling you what we've done in Live Labs, it's about creating a long-lasting tool for the sector to share what works where, how, why, and to start to sort of connect in a digital space. It provides hopefully a comprehensive menu of options with carbon cost and performance noted, and also has that space for peer reviews just to facilitate that culture of local authority collaboration as well. As I mentioned, not the finished item. We need your input and data. I've got the Mentimeter at the end of this, so please do welcome you all to leave your feedback so we can use that what do you want to see differently? What do you want to see in addition? What would you like even removed? All of these are really vital. So we'll need your input absolutely for this to really take shape over the next few months. In terms of what's next, as you know, we're launching today. We are at the webinar, but we're also going to doing demonstrations at events. So, for example, we'll be at Road Expo Scotland for those who will be there, and happy to talk through our trials, or equally the Knowledge Bank or any of our other work streams. And again, continually trying to input and cleanse the data that we do have on there, publish our evaluations once they're available as well. As I mentioned, that will then go into that phase of iterative development that we're already starting with the developers, collecting and collating all of your user feedback, verification with suppliers of some of the data we have, which we've already started, and then as well come on to speak about the Carbon tool. And finally, we'll have those regular sort of drumbeat of re-releases on a regular basis. So based on the feedback, prioritization, and additional features. So we're already looking at, for example, an AI chatbot, developing a forum for local authorities, looking at how suppliers and local authorities can interact in the space, and then as well looking at specification guidance too. So I'll go through the demonstration, and I've got some of the key pages here, and I'll have to stop sharing and reshare. But just considerations here. As I mentioned, this is awaiting user input. You'll see there aren't really any reviews because this is our launch. So we're waiting for local authorities to put in their own reviews of materials, and really need that input from yourself for it to come to life. As I mentioned, we're still going through that process of validating carbon information. So most of the entries will have empty carbon figures because we'd rather not present something that's not been validated. So again, that's just as a FYI. As I mentioned, this is a phase 1 with further developments and features to come, and we are doing that supplier validation. So please, if you are a supplier on this, review your own entries for your materials, send your feedback and edits if you do have them, and we'll be happy to implement those as well. And then some materials are those that we have identified and trialed, in fact, and those will have case studies attached to them. And then some are awaiting further supplier details. So just keep that in mind when looking through the knowledge bank. Just going to stop presenting very quickly and re-present.
Hey, Lauren, if I could just
Yep,
pop in there when you're changing. Yeah, when we started out, a 3-year program sounded like a long time, and with a timeline and a program of work. Obviously, things change over 3 years, and it's taken longer for us to get some of the work streams moving than we initially anticipated. So this year's been very busy, a lot of trials going on, which has resulted in a backlog of work, and obviously a lot of rushing, trying to get finished by the end of March next year. So yeah, it's all coming together at one time. So there is still work ongoing in the background, filling in information, completing case studies and that. So we've got much more we can put in, but as Lauren says, this is a launch to try and get it moving, and we very much need your input as well.
Great, thanks, Scott. So this is our current website for those of you who have been on it. But just to point out, you can reach the Knowledge Bank from going to our website, so you can just click on Knowledge Bank. That will then take you to this. You will have an option. I'm signed in already, but have an option to sign in. If you're a local authority, you will hopefully be automatically verified if you have a .gov.uk email address. And that will give you an enhanced level of features. So you'll be able to, for example, put in your reviews of materials, put in your own case studies, and so on. And then as a supplier as well, that would be a case of reaching out to us, and we can edit the material entries. In terms of the homepage, as I mentioned, we have a call to action. So we have 3 main sort of pages here: materials, case studies, and an A4 carbon calculator, which is the travel. We have sort of a snapshot of latest materials, material reviews. As I mentioned, we only have 1 at the moment, and then you can see some featured case studies. Unsurprisingly, we have only case studies from North Lanarkshire and West Midlands, and as I mentioned, this is why we're really looking for those from across the sector. We are very much willing to sit down and have one-to-one conversations with local authorities to actually help you write the case studies if that's something that you don't have capacity for. So please do reach out as well, and that's something that we can discuss in further detail. So to go to the materials page then, we have the materials listed, as you can see, and you can sort those. Right now, they're by which materials have the most case studies, but you can also sort them by newest to oldest, alphabetically in terms of the performance, cost, and so on and so forth. We also have each material associated with a service activity. So you can, if you want, filter by main activity. So for example, if you were looking for specifically surface treatments, you can then go in and see our surface treatments at a glance. You could also filter by different material types. DMRB series, we're looking at editing that in the next phase of development, considering the very, very new launch of the MCHW and DMRB that's revised, just to make sure it aligns for that. So this is the historic approach. So for those of you who are already whizzes with the new updates, then apologies for that. If you go on to the individual entries, so we'll click on to Reclamite, which we trialed in both the West Midlands and North Lanarkshire as well. It will give you a brief overview. If you're a local authority, you'll have the option to add your own review. They'll have key considerations, so very high level, at a glance, what do you want to think about for this material? Specific images from previous trials, for example. You'll then have the carbon impact, so you can see as well at a glance what that is. And if you want to click in, you can see the carbon data source. So for this one, it's secondary emissions factors gathered from the RSTA report, and then also third-party verified by PI management in accordance with EN 15804.A2. If there were user reviews, you could see those user reviews as well. And those user reviews will also give an overall rating, but also a rating for carbon performance and so on. You'll have a section for specifications. So at a very high level, what activity is it associated with? What material type is it? Or where are the manufacturing sites? And links for further information. You'll then have your supplier details as well, so you can click on and contact them directly. And finally, be able to see where it has been trialed across the UK, and of course, any relevant documents. So for example, we have the RSTA report on here. We have other testing, BBA certificates and others that are relevant to the material. If you do see something on a material page that you say, well, it doesn't sound really right, or, oh, there's something missing that we could include differently, please do suggest a change. This button will take you to an automatic email to our mailbox, info@decarbonisingroads.co.uk, and we can discuss and implement those changes. As well, so as I mentioned, you can go in and view your case studies. So you can view these in grid version, which is similar to the materials listing, and we have some from our live labs here. But you can also view them in map depending on your preference. If you were to go into these, we can go into, for example, keeping on the Reclamite train, you can go into Reclamite, explore sort of the origins, the overall overview of the trial, some key learnings, the specific trial details. So when was it carried out? What was the road type, the existing road condition? And that's based on sort of the 1 to 5 scale. How is it procured? What were the benchmarks? In this case, it is just the do nothing scenario. And you can also link back into the materials page if you want to learn more. We also have some sort of conditions of the trial, so temperature, weather, region of where it was, and any operational feedback. You have the option to look at further images, and again, looking at additional documents that may be attached to that. As we mentioned, there's a carbon calculator that currently is non-functional, so we'll be looking to launch it once we start to publish our carbon figures in full. It will have the option to talk you through how it actually works and what our methodology is. It is for A4, so it's understanding what the A1 and A3 and A5 is that we've collected through the live lab. What would then be your specific local authority's A4? So you would select the material, it would automatically pull in the A1 to A3 and A5, the quantity, what sort of the travel methodology is, number of deliveries, for example, and the vehicle used to transport the material. So it'd be a very rough guide tool of to estimate the transport carbon associated with your works that you're doing. There's of course a search feature. So if you're looking for example, let's say something to do with potholes, it'll come up with either material or case studies, and you can actually see at a glance and start to click into those. And finally, as well, you have content management. So you're seeing right now the admin version, but if you're a local authority, you would have the option to create a material or create a case study. And then, as the admin, we were able to go in and edit the supplier details and review details as well. So that, in a nutshell, is the knowledge bank itself. As I mentioned, we're looking at how we could use or put in a forum. We're looking at all sorts of other tools. So really keen to get your feedback on what you would like to see in the next phase of development. I'm just going to reshare my slides 1 second. Resume back from where we were. To access the knowledge bank, as I mentioned, you can go directly to our website and click that button, or you can go to its specific domain, which is kb.decarbonizingroads.co.uk. And equally, you can scan this QR code. So please do feel free to use that. And we will put the link into the chat as well. But we'll open up for questions and discussions. As I mentioned, we have a brief Mentimeter that will ask you for 3 different questions. So what are the most important features that you saw to you for your own experience of the knowledge bank? How would you rate the knowledge bank? So once you get to start to use it, how would you rate it on sort of 5 different levels? And that'll help us shape what we focus in on for the next development too. And then thirdly, what other feedback or things would you like to see from it? So if you do get the time, please take the rest of this time period, so next sort of 10 minutes, to have a play around with the knowledge bank, fill out the Mentimeter and leave your feedback, because that will be incredibly useful for us and the edits and amendments that we do make. So any further or initial questions or thoughts or comments on the knowledge bank and what we've seen to date? Oh, coming Scott first.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, just to state or say that obviously Live Labs finishes March 26, so obviously we've just got to the stage where we're providing all this information, we're developing the tools. We're currently speaking to Adept about future funding, so how we can retain and maintain and improve the tools that we've developed going forward. Certainly we're keeping some for existing funding back, so we can pay for the knowledge bank for the next 12 months or so. But we are pushing Adept to try and put in or provide further funding. So any support that if you think it's a good idea, we'd really welcome that information, so we can use that as additional support to strengthen our bid for funding going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Elaine, did you want to come in?
Yes, it was just a final point that I was going to just raise about the importance of the knowledge bank and the importance of getting involved in the knowledge bank. We want to obviously build up a database that we have a map that shows people where these trials are carried out. So should you desire to go and have a look and see them actually on the ground, or sort of monitor them for your own purposes, we have that information on the knowledge bank, so you know exactly where these products have been trialled and whether they would suit your area of where your council remit is. So it's really important that we get that feedback and we get those case studies on the map so that we know where these trials have taken place.
Thanks, Elaine. Yeah, really good last point. Any other thoughts, questions? Oh, we've got one in the chat, and I know David's just put his hand up, so I'll go to the one in the chat just quickly. So we have someone who's Malcolm, who's asked, how do you manage the risks of greenwashing? So a really important point. I think we are really adverse to that risk, as you can imagine, and so are all of the live labs. What we're doing in the background is we have in both campuses, so in North Lanarkshire and the West Midlands, a full-time carbon lead who's sort of unbiased, separate from the trials, and actually going through and completing whole life carbon evaluations of these materials. They're working with the FHRG and trying as well where possible to work under NDA to help some of these suppliers that don't have EPDs get to that point where they have some level of emissions factors. I think the risk is that, you know, anytime you present carbon, that it is nuanced and it has to be viewed in a nuanced way. That's why we've implemented that feature which tells you sort of at a glance, is it bronze, silver, gold, gold being third-party verified EPDs, silver being, you know, the secondary emissions are also, or maybe something that we've worked on bespokely, and bronze being, you know, be a little bit more wary. It's maybe a supplier provided, and we might have, you know, lesser confidence than we would with something third-party verified. So I guess it's also down to partially the user, and we're trying to provide as much context and information. As I mentioned, the carbon evaluations that our carbon leads are working on will be published and will be attached to each material listing. So that'll give you sort of the background methodology and very detailed methodology of how we've gotten to where we've gotten to. So what we're hoping in doing so is that users at least are empowered to try to look into and unpick some of the carbon emissions data. Just going on to the hand up, David.
Thanks, Lauren. David Carter from South Lanarkshire Council. Myself and Grant, my manager, were obviously we seen this at the initial, you know, not rollout, but given an overview. We're really impressed with it. What I was going to say is Scott, via I'm not sure who it was, Scott, but we only get the notification of this overview on Monday, and it was kind of short time to disseminate as much as we could. And we did try on the K-Hub, and we tried to our little roads group. It's interesting that there's going to be a chat at Road Expo. That's great. That's great coverage and getting the message out there. But I'm just wondering, looking at the attendee list today, you know, there's not hundreds of representation from roads authorities, so maybe just keep that in mind. I don't know if you want to, Scott, look at our roads group as doing a presentation to direct to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea, David. We can certainly try and get a presentation at maybe the next Scots Roads group and the next Scots NURSA group as well. If that's good.
David Capin's on the call here, so David and I'll arrange with John Ashcroft, you know, to get this out to our roads group, because I think a direct presentation to them, just based on the knowledge base itself, you know, would be very advantageous, because I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Thanks,
and certainly
David.
we can do that and arrange the same south of the border. Just before Mark comes in there, just wanted to highlight that we are focused on whole life carbon as well, so we are looking for to take that into account as a key part of it. Some of the delays are because we're testing all these materials through the University of Nottingham, the National University as well, so there's a bottleneck there, so we're waiting for the information coming back on sort of estimated service lives and that sort of thing, so that will all be coming back as part of our case studies as well.
Great, thanks, Scott. Mark, do you want to come in? Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to give a real quick shout out to the team. thanking you all for, getting us so far with the program. It's been quite difficult, but hopefully those who are in attendance can see that it's taken us quite a lot of time to get here to the Knowledge Bank. And as David Carter just rightfully pointed out, yes, there are quite a number of people that we would like to see. And I think that's going to be the important aspect for us as we try to roll this forward, because whilst we're doing something that we think is essential for the sector, we naturally wouldn't have all the connections. So it's really for those people who are here with us on the journey to help us to disseminate, to connect into your networks, and to get the reach that we need. Because I do passionately believe that if we can get this right, we will save ourselves quite a significant amount of investment that goes into the local road network, but also having those diminishing impacts in terms of carbon. So a huge thanks to the team for getting us to this point so far, but also a little bit of a reach out to those who are in attendance to help us with that reach, because we are really going to need it. So thank you very much, everybody.
Great, thank you, Mark. Any other comments or questions? If not, we will let you go away and play with it and hopefully enjoy it. Oh, Donald, one last one. Or was that a...
Sorry, that was an accident.
Oh, okay, no worries. Okay, well, yeah, thank you all for your time as well. And as we mentioned, the more we can amplify this, the better we can start to store case studies centrally and experiences with materials, and just really start to reduce that siloed working we talked about. It's really powerful for us as a team to see how close we've grown between the West Midlands and hundreds of miles north in North Lanarkshire. So to see that cross-border collaboration is really critical as well. So the more that we can do that in that digital space, the more that we can help centrally as a team. We're happy to present as well to any of the groups that you may be a part of, and start to share that message more widely. So thank you again for your time. Please do have enjoyed using it and leave your feedback. And we look forward to updating you as we go on with the further developments. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.